This is Managing Mayhem.
Brought to you by two lawyers and a layman.
Because good intentions are not a legal defense.
Wait, I'm sorry, they're not? Okay, well, let's get going then. Hello, and welcome to Managing Mayhem with Patty, Jeff, and Jack. What's going on, you guys? Good morning.
Morning.
What's happening?
I woke up to having 3 alerts on my phone: wind, flood, and avalanche.
Oh, God. It is the name
Oh,
of
God.
It's a band name.
Yeah, I could see why they didn't go with wind, flood, and avalanche. Earth, wind, and fire has
Right.
a little more catchiness to it.
Right.
Well, those sound like pretty good excuses to be tardy if you're going to be tardy today, because that's what we're talking about, right?
Truly.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good segue, Jeff.
Oh, I know, right? I like that. That's nice and clean. Well,
Be great
Patty
to
and I have
get
we've been getting a lot of questions from HR managers on how to deal with those employees who are chronically tardy, right?
Mhm.
There's a pattern. They have a new excuse. One
Right.
day it's wind, the next day it's avalanche, and then the third day it's flood. I mean, every
Right.
day it's something different, right?
And they live in a they live in a hot spot.
I
They
don't
live in a
know.
90s
Yeah.
They live in a 90s natural disaster movie
Yes.
I know.
with Pierce Brosnan.
Let's
Okay,
talk
so-
tardies. Let's talk
God.
tardies.
So we got a question today, or whenever we got it, and I'm going to change the name of the person just because we always protect the person who is, we think is innocent, but we don't know.
Right.
So we'll call them Ted, and the question was this: it said, Ted has gotten into the habit of showing up late. The time varies between 5 minutes late and 20 minutes late. He says he has constant car trouble and he has a hard time getting his kids out of the door. The company's having a hard time disciplining him because he is such a quote unquote positive presence in the office. What do you recommend we do?
It's so challenging, and I'm gonna drop some stats that are probably
Oh.
unnecessary because we all know people are tardy. But
Yes.
1 in 4 employees admit to showing up late to work once a month. Not shocking. I'm not shocked by that. And then
I'm late everywhere.
13% of employees say it's a weekly occurrence. So
Wow.
Yeah.
this issue is one of those issues that first of all, everyone's tardy every
We've
once
all
in a
been
while
late.
or once a month. But we're really talking about that person who is weekly.
Always
or,
late.
They're always late, right? And they have a
Right.
new excuse. The Teds of your office, we all know them. We're all going to not say their names to protect the innocent. But
Let's have a TED Talk.
right,
but yeah, let's have a TED Talk.
everyone
About
every office
tardiness.
has one, right?
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, so I want just a little bit of fun here. I
Okay.
found that like the top 10 excuses that are given, and you guys don't have those. So real quickly here, anyone want to, I'll start with Jack. Quick, what are like top 10 excuses given for being late to work?
Traffic, I would guess.
Number
is up
1,
there.
51%
There you go.
traffic. Okay, I have to say, I did have a client. It's been a while. I'm going to change some of it, but they had someone, text that they were running late due to traffic and send an image of the traffic, which I
Ooh.
thought, oh, that's very
Nice.
responsible.
Right.
Yeah.
Although someone standing next to them saying, those don't look like the trees that grow in our area. So they Googled traffic image, and
Oh,
the
no.
exact image came up. Peru. It was in Peru,
No.
not the state of Washington.
Do your research. Go
This
go
image has
on.
palm trees in it. We're in the Northwest. I'm a
Yeah.
little confused by where your
I'm
traffic
shocked.
is.
Okay, so what
so
other
do you-
what other excuses?
All right, I'd say weather. Speaking of wind,
Yeah.
avalanche,
That's one,
flood.
yeah.
Like kids,
number
I think
3.
that. Okay, Ted.
Okay.
Ted has with the kids. I think he gets a lot of sympathy. I
Yeah,
can see that being
family kind of issues.
sick. Someone not feeling well.
Right.
Yeah, sick children is a big one,
Sick children.
That's huge. That's a double whammy. That's like all of the sympathy.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What
I'd say
else?
just sleeping. I mean, I feel like most people oversleep. Whether they tell them as an excuse or not, I don't know. But
Number 2
Yeah.
answer: oversleeping or the
Okay.
alarm didn't go off.
Oh
that
shit.
good old
that
alarm didn't go off, which no one believes anymore because we all have it on our cell phone.
That's the truth.
They put AM or PM instead of AM.
Right.
That
Oh,
could
there
be,
you go.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That makes sense. That makes
what
sense.
else? What else, guys?
What excuses have you guys? Do you guys ever use any? Or are you perfect?
Blame it on the kids. Definitely, I'm going with Ted. Had trouble getting the kids out the door. Yeah,
And I could do the same with mom, because when I would get ready for school, mom would be doing like the stationary bike, and I'd be watching Buffy, because that's the best, one of the best shows still is. And then mom would always it was an awkward time, because the time the episode played, it was like always like 15 minutes left, when it would be like, I need to leave for school, but like there are still 15 in the show. And then mom would be like, let's just watch it. And we'd watch it. And then I had a really bad idea where I would get to school late, and I thought that crawling in was sneaky. But turns out it was like actually much more attention grabbing, and actually caused for alarm, where they did send me to like the nurse to be like, you good?
You all right?
We see you on the ground.
Jack's coming to school. He's crawling in the classroom, and he's got like about 3 wooden stakes in his backpack. We're a little concerned about what's going on at home.
He just
I think most excuses are legitimate, car trouble, traffic, but I can always tell when they're not being completely honest, when there's way too much detail. Like they give you a big story.
That's why, I mean, I've lied a lot about this stuff. And I know this isn't attractive, but it's the truth. White lied, makes us feel better. But I mean, it's when you get too detailed, like you're absolutely caught.
Right.
You have to have 2 things tops: something to get some sympathy, and something that is like classically relatable, like the alarm.
Right, or outside your control,
Okay, but we're not really promoting this. We're just saying that these are things that managers will hear.
Right.
So
we've all heard them.
So,
this isn't new.
Yeah. Totally. What are the biggest problems for tardiness?
Right, for the workplace.
That's what I'm asking.
Well, obviously, these are pretty obvious, but if you have like medical or manufacturing, when you have shift changes and it's holding up people leaving or going home, that's a great way to make enemies, and it's going to cost you, because you can be paying overtime for those people who are being held up.
Okay.
The other thing is when people are opening, right, and people are late to work, right, when they're opening, and all of a sudden the other staff has to shoulder the weight of the missing employee, and so that's a real
huge way to
go. Jeff, I'm flashing to just literally over a month ago when we went to Chicago, and Annie and I were at Dollar Tree getting Jackson birthday balloons, and the woman working was actually crying because the person was 15 minutes late and she was going to miss something very important, and we felt so badly, like, should we take over? Right. You know what I mean? It's just, you feel really badly.
Yeah, you guys just in there blowing up balloons. Right. Passed out.
And also it puts people into overtime, like for a company, the labor expense. But
so I think it sounds like, because there's inconsistency, like it would be important for people to maybe like define it, get clear on it. Like, what are some things that people can do for that to just make it cut and dry? Because it seems pretty measurable. It's literally numbers.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's one area of the law where there's no regulation that tells you what is a tardy. It's really up to a business to decide.
Right. Okay.
And the problem I see is the business doesn't decide, so each manager has inconsistent standards. Some say, well, if you're not at the workstation right at the start of your shift, you're tardy.
Right.
Another says if you're not there 5 minutes early, okay, well, wait. If you want them there 5 minutes early, you have to pay them starting your shift at 4:55. Some say if you're 1 minute late. Others say, well, if it's within our rounding. Others say 10 minutes, 15. Right. So the first thing to me is you actually do need to define it in your policy. What
very
is
clearly.
that clearly? It's the same as a teenager. What's the curfew? You need to set that expectation.
Because I remember that there would be like, be here, you're here on time, but you're like, okay, is it clocking in uniform, and ready to work, and that's on time, or is it if I clock in and go change? Right. It's like, what's actually...
That's a great point. I think you should put in your policy, you have to be actually ready to work.
Right.
Yes.
We're not ready to read the paper, do Sudoku,
right, or sit down and eat your breakfast at your workstation
exactly.
because you didn't get a chance to do it on the way
I've
over.
done it all. Just bring out my crossword and just say, I'm ready to work.
Absolutely. Well, you have to define what it actually means. And as Patty said, I mean, it's making sure all the managers are truly on the same page, because certain managers will have a much higher threshold or
they're the cool manager.
Right. They're going to let it slide a little bit. They're like, this doesn't bother me. It doesn't impact production, but it's going to impact the rest of your employees who are going to be upset that person's not being disciplined. So you definitely have to make sure that they're on the same page, so that there's equal
consistency.
Yes, exactly.
Right. I
Right.
also think it's very important to define what is excessive. So obviously a one-off is going to be fine. Some companies like to keep it very vague to say excessive is as determined in the sole discretion of management. That's fine to a point, but boy, that can cause a lot of conflict. So if you can say, 2 in a month or 6 in 6
Right.
months or whatever it is, that actually gives more guidance both to managers and the employees on what's the expectation.
Right.
Absolutely. And I would have all these things in your policy, right? It's all about prevention first, right? So you want to make sure that there's some transparency in the definition, what's excessive.
Right.
So you've kind of laid out the ground rules and you've shared that with the employees and they've signed an acknowledgement that supposedly they've read this and that they're going to abide by it.
Right.
Right.
And what do people do when they see a pattern? Like, what is a good way of actually punishing? Sounds like such a crazy word.
Well, I think before you punish them,
Discipline.
I think there's a few ways short of punishment. Schedule some shift change meetings or the start of the shift meeting first, so that they mandatory have to be there for that 5-minute
Right.
check-in.
Right.
Incentivize them before you get to punishment.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, hey, we're going to have donuts at 8:00 for a change of shift.
Sure.
I don't know. I'm trying
Or
to
we
think
would-
before I get straight to punishment, ways I would, encourage people to get there.
I want to get right to punishment. No, I'm kidding. We had these pre-shift meetings that actually were helpful because it was like if you didn't go, you didn't get key information that you would need for
Right.
the shift, and then you just are behind. You're like,
Right.
oh, you're playing catch up.
Exactly.
The other thing I like about the shift change meeting or the start of the day, even if it's remote workers can get on for Zoom, for a few minutes, it's a way for you to do a roll call without making it sound like a roll call. Does that make
Right.
sense?
No, I think it's a great idea. I do think it takes a little time for the manager, but I do think if you're having an attendance problem or tardiness problem, or if you have remote workers, you don't think they're actually starting to work on time, then totally do
Yeah.
it. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah. But then we get to punishment.
So now we're at
Thank
punishment.
God. Thank God. Thank God. What a mission.
So one idea I heard of, and I've seen just one company do this, which I don't think is maybe the best idea, but they essentially said if the person shows up late to work, they tell the person, hey, you actually can't report to work until the next half an hour, right? Like if they're 10
So they're
minutes
saying
late,
they don't
then
get paid.
right, then you got to go sit
Okay.
in your car or something for the next 20 minutes, and then you can start work at the next half hour mark.
It's like an extra half-hour break.
Right. It's like, so you're telling me I'll just go take an unpaid half an hour break? Okay.
Awesome.
Right.
Literally,
It's
like,
like-
I
there's a
envision this
coffee shop if you want to get comfortable.
right. And all of a sudden, in that person's mind, they're just working a half of an hour less. So they're just push the envelope.
They're just
right?
sitting in their car with like blasting the heat with like little cucumbers. On their eyes.
And everybody else is working on the construction site, short-staffed.
Right.
Yeah, like,
Freezing.
I just like get the hell in here.
Right. Like
Get the hell over here.
Most companies will not do that. And I don't recommend it because exactly as Jack said, you'd be like, no, get in here now. Like, you need to start
doing?
working now.
I've had a couple companies try what they call creative, I call somewhat legal disasters, is where they're like, if
Okay.
you're late, you agree that the first 2 hours are going to be at minimum wage that you work.
Oh damn.
Dang.
They didn't find a lot of success with that.
$7.25.
Enjoy it.
I had another company say that we're going to dock their pay, so they're actually only going to get paid for 6 hours a day instead of 8. I'm like, well, that's not legal. Can't do that. You have to pay them for all the
Right.
labor that they perform. So it's better to let them sit in their car because
Right.
they're not working. But you can't say, well, you're working 8, but we're only paying
Right.
6.
Paying you less. Got it.
Yeah.
So
Don't do
you
it.
know,
Yeah, don't do
people
that.
have tried to get around this, but I think the number one thing you have to do is you have to address it head on. Identify
Okay.
that behavior. Look to
Right.
see. Everyone's going to have legitimate reasons. Whether it's Ted. Whether it's car trouble or you're
Right.
getting your kids
Right.
to school or weather or whatever it is. But look to the pattern. Is it every Monday? Is it every Friday? Is it every day? Is it once a week? And really clearly document internally for yourself the dates and times. Not that you want to be over policing and, okay, I have a stopwatch, but just, you'll know when you're getting that pattern, but make sure you're writing down those dates, times, and the reasons that they give you.
Right. And you have to do it for everybody because you won't be able to see a pattern until you actually can look at your documentation and be like, well, hey, Ted's kind of been late a lot,
Right.
And
if anything, it's not to punish someone. It's just so you can keep track of what's going on.
So even if
you have all the information.
Exactly. So even if Jack's tardy one day during the month, not a big deal, but we at least know why he was tardy that day.
We're going to make him a cake. Right. Wow, only one time.
This is huge.
It's a miracle. But definitely document it for all your employees, and then you'll be able to kind of see that pattern. But once you notice that there is a pattern or it violates the policy for being excessive, then you need to actually coach and discipline. And so I recommend...
I was going to say also just communicating the pattern that you're noticing a pattern to the person too, I think is really key, because then someone you can't stockpile stuff and use it later. And then someone feels blindsided and you actually feel like, okay, this is my behavior is not going unnoticed. Right. So it makes me more prone to make a change.
Right. That's why I'm glad Jeff mentioned coaching and discipline.
Really, really, the coaching's the first part where you're not disciplining them. You're just going to show them, hey, Ted, we've noticed you've been tardy 5 times.
Every time the Buffy reruns are on.
Right. Every Wednesday morning.
Also, that wasn't an appropriate show. I shouldn't have had you watch that show.
I love that show. It's so great. The love triangles are good. But also, it's like, wait, what do you mean when the reruns are on? Like, don't you just stream it?
Yeah.
Reruns are always on. Wait, is Jack actually much older?
Oh, no.
He's using cable TV for reruns.
Did he have to watch commercials?
I'm using Jeff's Disney Plus account.
Yeah. But the thing is that when you go to coach with them, show them the pattern that you've seen. You can even explain to them how it's having an impact on the company, their coworkers.
Right. Guilt works.
Honestly, though, yes.
Yeah.
Because I may not like the company, but I like some of the people I work with.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Hate to say it.
Yeah, I think
we're not here to make friends.
I like Carol. She's nice.
Haley's amazing.
Haley's amazing. I feel bad.
We hate all the same people, and I don't want to be on her list.
I do think when I know guilt, some people say don't use it. I say, it's accountability, telling them this is the impact you're having, and some people just aren't
self-aware.
Wield
it like a weapon.
Exactly. Okay,
I don't use guilt. I am armed with guilt.
I think that when you're talking to this person, just say, what's going on? Like, I see 4 times that you're saying that you're having car trouble. I mean, part of the job is having reliable transportation. Right. Now, if they mention to you, when you say, hey, what's going on? We need you here at work on time. And they say, well, I'm having migraines in the morning, or I have a mental health condition that makes it very difficult for me to get out. What I want you to do, managers, is say, okay, if you need some type of accommodation, a time off or an accommodation, we're going to get you directly to HR.
Yes.
Really important.
Send them right there immediately.
To do that. Right. Now, what we don't want to do, right, Jeff, is be judge and jury. You've seen this a lot.
Right. You don't want to play doctor. You're not going to be the one to...
No one should be playing doctor.
No.
What?
There's not a medical thing. No, but the thing is that we get...
Especially in the workplace.
So many people...
Hold on.
Right,
the coworker.
When we go back to the excuses people give, right, a lot of times they're made up, right? And so a lot of managers will say, hey, well, they're just kind of... This is not true that they're getting migraines.
Cynical.
They're just trying to get out of... get out of being in trouble for being tardy. And so...
Right.
Some managers will say, okay, yeah, but tardy, I don't care, like if it's medical, and they don't go to HR. And so that's what I'm saying. Don't play doctor. You're not going to be the one to actually assess, like, does this person actually have depression or anxiety or migraines? No, you're not. You're just going to send it to HR and they'll do their analysis, but don't be the gatekeeper of that information. You need to communicate that to HR saying, hey,
exactly,
this person has been tardy, and they said it's because of X, Y, and Z.
Now, I will say that a lot of employees don't bring up these medical excuses until they're about to get a written warning for excessive tardiness.
Right. That's the truth.
I would tell them that, first of all, we can give you an accommodation going forward, but you didn't mention that to us before. So it's not an excuse for past conduct. It's not a get out of jail free card.
Sure.
But if they do, hopefully you're not the first time you're talking to them doing a written warning. You're actually having that coaching and they're telling you, I'm having migraines. You're like, okay, let's get you to HR and have you get an accommodation. So we don't get into the discipline segment of this discussion.
And this is where having that list of why they've been what days and why they've been tardy is really important, because we've had it, Patty, where like we've had managers who have really good lists and the person will say, hey, actually, I was tardy for migraines. And then we pull up their list of tardies and it's like car trouble, weather, traffic, and they've not mentioned it once to the manager.
And so it does protect a manager as well, because they can say, well, you actually didn't mention a medical condition, so I'm not doing anything that's medically discriminatory or something like that. So but again, have that conversation early, like Jack said. Don't stockpile, don't sandbag them and then just get so angry that you're doing a written warning.
And I also think that sometimes managers are really trying to be nice, and they think they're doing a service by being generous about tardies, because they know everyone can be tardy and things happen. But I think it does. It makes it hard when you do start to get disciplined, and then you just don't know what's going on. It just in the manager's best interest to not try to be the cool guy.
I agree. The key here is not to be popular. It's to be respected. And you're not going to be respected by your whole staff if you're letting someone take advantage of the whole staff. And so you may think you're being cool, but you're not cool to all the remaining staff members.
Right. And there are managers that have been cool with me where I'm like, great, this is the manager. I know I can be late to work because they're going to be cool about it. And then there's a manager where I'm like, oh, I cannot. And so it's like, if you just, I don't know, set the same precedent, it is going to just help make things clearer, expectations and all that.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
There's other options you can look at, and one of them is, in addition to obviously a written warning, if you have to get there. And to me, if you have to get there, that I don't want to see a written warning that doesn't say the dates and times, how long and what your policy was. Otherwise, it's too hard to document and discipline. But also, you can make performance quarterly, monthly, year-end bonuses tied to tardies. And if someone has X amount of tardies that are not excused for obviously protected class reasons, jury duty, medical, you could actually make that a condition of receiving a bonus, and that seems to work for some.
I think that's a great idea. I think
I would have been way more on time, way more
right.
Time.
If you're gonna jeopardize your year-end bonus just because you're tardy consistently, and like what you're saying, this is a pattern. It's not these one-offs. So you're gonna have some wiggle room.
But it's a good incentive.
Right. I think it's a great incentive. One thing that I read, and they said that to sit down with the employee and come up with an action plan to help them arrive to work on time.
Oh, God.
Cringe. You're like now a life coach.
Yeah, you're sitting there like, okay, here's Google Maps, and we're going to find...
time to get up.
You have your little Jack's
Here's a wake-up
bus.
call at like
I
6:30.
printed out the Google Maps. There's coffee downstairs. Take your time.
I just envision the manager driving and picking everyone up for work so that they're on
just
time.
Driving around a bus, just honking the horn. Oh my
God. I agree with you, Jeff.
That
I think, again, well-intended, but managers get way too involved in people's personal lives. That's not your business. You just want the basic reason and then say, okay, it's your job to get here on time. Please make adjustments to your personal life so it doesn't impact your work. If you need time off, that's why we have leave of absences, why we have paid time off. But other than that, you have to be here. Please get your personal life together.
And you want them to as well,
Yes, you're cheering for them.
Yeah, you can do it, Ted.
Seriously, Ted, I mean it. Get the kids out the door. Why are they behind the door?
Go.
Yeah, seriously. Like with a whistle.
Another thing that I did see as kind of a motivational tool would be to actually give them like a $50 gift certificate if they have like perfect attendance or they're doing really well on the attendance. And so it's more of a motivational. It's less of a
promotional, but
Yeah, Jeff, I think a lot of people have gone away from perfect attendance because obviously you have to exclude, like if you've been injured, workers' comp or family, or you have COVID. Oh, I'm here, you guys. I have perfect attendance.
Go home.
Oh, God. But I think it's actually a good idea for punctuality, for tardiness. The only thing is that I do worry about how do I say this? Like setting our expectations so low that it's like, we're paying you a bonus for showing up to work. I don't know.
What trying to get you here with a Baskin Robbins gift card.
I mean, I think it feels a little bit like a last resort type of thing. If you're like, I'm begging you, I will give you a gift card to our company. I will give you a gift card to the 7-Eleven. I will, or whatever. But it is like, it's hard because I've been at jobs where I've not been passionate about the job. And so my timeliness has not been a priority for me. So it might have helped. But also, it is a little bit low hanging fruit.
But I do think with lower entry level jobs or a little more monotonous jobs, maybe that does.
I struggled with
those.
I think
it's because you're not motivated.
Getting motivated, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And some days, even on the job you love, you're having a bad day, and you're like, God, this is not where I want to go. And sometimes if that $50 gift card is in the back of your mind, it may just be what you need to get there right on time.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, just kind of as a recap, just make sure that you are looking at your policy, talking to HR, firming that up, tightening it, communicating, keeping track, documenting, but not over policing or targeting one employee over another that you don't like to. And then talk with them, be a real human being about what is going on, how can we get you here, what the impact are, and then obviously discipline if you have to go that route, but coaching first.
It's all about
but more
consistency.
Importantly,
it's all about consistency.
Yes, absolutely.
And more importantly,
it's
Jack?
It's most importantly, it's about punishment.
No.
No, I'm kidding.
All right.
So we are. You can catch us out. You can check us out on YouTube. We've been posting videos of the recordings of the pod on our channel. You can subscribe, follow, share. We're also on Spotify and wherever else you get your podcasts. And send us an email if you have any tardiness questions or policy questions
or crazy excuses or that.
Yeah, give us your worst excuses.
Yeah, give us some goods.
Yeah.
Give us the goods.
Guys. Thank you. Hope you have a tardy mayhem-free week.
Yeah, we'll catch you next Monday.
Okay, see you later. Bye.
Bye. Managing Mayhem is presented by Management Northwest and Management Southwest and cannot be copied or rebroadcast without prior written consent. By listening to this podcast, you understand that we, or at least two of us, are lawyers, but we are not your lawyers. Therefore, nothing we say on the podcast should be taken as legal advice or considered to create an attorney-client relationship. It is solely meant for your educational and informational purposes. The podcast should not be used as a substitute for legal advice from an attorney licensed in your state. Please be aware that listening to lawyers can cause side effects such as migraine, self-doubt, and also may cure insomnia. But you know what? Trust your own judgment or you're not your mom.